Man, your show's gonna be awesome, bro. Your show's gonna be awesome.
Okay, Tanscapi. Hello, everybody. Thank you guys for joining us. We have an exciting episode for you guys tonight, and I am super excited to have her on. It is Stephanie Big Eagle. She'll be joining us later this evening. And so she's an actress, model, vocalist, but I'll introduce her a little bit more later on and let her introduce herself to you guys as well. So, in the meantime, let's go ahead and get started and start thanking our sponsors. You know, I do want to say thanks to peaceoflifeshop.com. They're one of our sponsors as well. More like affiliates, but here we go. So, and what y'all don't know is actually I'm going to have my own code coming up as well too. So uh, I really enjoy their stuff. This is actually hemp. This is hemp product. This is not marijuana. And so the main difference is like if you go to a shop and you buy one of those things that don't have a little QR code on it that shows the police or whoever scans it exactly the lab reports, that's considered illegal. Okay. And this is what helps out with the legality of it. This right here, whenever they scan it, it's going to take them to a full lab report that has this information as well as a lot more detailed information, and it's going to show the picture of the product. And so that helps out with the legality of the product here in Texas, which is considered a prohibition state. And so we want to make sure that everybody stays safe. For me, I'm licensed by the state to be able to do like pension reviews, life and health insurance. I have to maintain it like a business, which leads me into my other sponsor, which is Red Bones Financial, where if you contact me, what I can do is I can do a financial needs analysis. A lot of people don't know that they're going to have an income gap when they go to retire. However, if you're self-employed, you're going to have a huge gap. If you have a pension, which is something that I've been noticing, it's going to be a lot better for you. You're not going to have as much as a gap, but however, there will still be a gap. So what I do with everyone is I do a free financial needs analysis to see where you're at currently, where you're going want to be financially when you go to retire. So that's Red Bones Financial. Now, also we have Water Pure Texas, and unfortunately, that was one of the things I did forget was the flyer. So Water Pure Texas is also a sponsor of the show as well, and they're dedicated to providing clean water to everybody, as well as low-income families. They have outreaches in El Salvador, Honduras, digging wells for lower, I guess, income families out there. And so we want to thank Water Pure Texas LLC. You can find them on Facebook now, as well as there's a website, new website coming in. They're being completely revamped. So excited about that. Later on, I'm going to show you guys, not today, but later on, whenever I get my machine, I'm going to be testing the water for everything that's in it, all the metals, show you exactly what to expect when you set an appointment. Now, Enchiladas Olay, we like to thank them as well too. It's been a long time supporter of my career as far as being an actor. Whenever I went down to San Antonio to film for The American Coyote, uh, Mary had actually covered my stay down there. So big thank you, Mary. You've helped us out tremendously, and we want to keep helping out with that. So Fort Worth, Texas, off of Camp Bowie, is Enchiladas Olay, and you can look them up on Google, Facebook, and all the social media. So give them a look now. That leads me into our last affiliation that we have, which is the Blackfoot Language Academy. Now, uh, let's see if this works out. I'm gonna have them try to post it up on the comments real quick, if you don't mind, Will, and off of the page. But Blackfeet Language Academy has been with us since the beginning of the show. I partnered with them because I am learning Blackfeet myself, which is my language, my mother language. That I don't want it to die out. I don't want it to be part of the problem as to reason why nobody can speak my language. And so, I want to be able to speak it. I teach it to my kids. I would like to teach it to everybody else. That's why I choose to, learn it. So, and then on the other turn too, I'm also teaching it because, one of the best ways to learn is to teach. And so, what I'm going to do is, Will, would you mind go ahead and putting those in the comments on the today's entertainer page? Uh, is I realized that I was telling everybody hello and how are you, but I never taught anybody how to respond. So, okay, Taniscapi, hello, how are you, or how are you doing? And let me go into my messages because I'm going to share it on there, I guess. And so, oh, there we go, perfect. So the first one that first response that we have it's Saniscapi. I mean Sakapi, sorry, Sakapi. And a lot of times you do this one with a hand motion, but like Sakapi, I'm doing good. The longer the hand motion, the better you're doing. Sakapi, doing really good. Sakapi, really well. So it's a little bit of that sign language to the indigenous side right there. So, and then on the other side of that, if you're not having a good day the way that you're gonna do it is Matsukappi. I'm not having a good day. It's a bad day. So Tsukapi, Matsukapi. So Uki Taniskapi, hello, how are you? Tsukapi, doing good. Matsukapi, not doing good. All right. And so you can find Blackfoot Language Academy on Facebook, and they're pretty good friends of mine. So moving on, I actually do have a couple of updates for you guys. Sorry about that. Uh, ooh, some got into my eye. But we have a couple of powwows actually coming up. Or actually, you know what? I'm moving way too fast. I didn't realize how fast I was going. But I'm just excited about today's interview. Whenever Stephanie agreed to it, I just thought it was the coolest thing. I've been checking out some of her career, some of her stuff that she's been doing, and even she's got a TikTok page and everything. It's so cool. I just can't wait to jump into it. So, kind of moving a little fast. So excuse me. But let me get into some other things real quick. I do want to thank certain people like Christine and Duke Gray Eyes. Uh, Back at the beginning of the year, I went to a stickball game up in Oklahoma at the First American Museum, and whenever we were up there, because we stayed the night at a hotel, the whole team from DFW Kabucha, and while we was there in the morning, this couple came up to me and I didn't understand what they were saying, but they were telling me that I look all I could understand was I look like somebody from the Blackhawks. And I thought they were talking about a person until way later on whenever I was playing stickball at practice and it was cold outside. And so I wore these right here, which is something that they gave me at the FAM game. So the First American Museum game. And I didn't realize until I was playing stickball later on, they were talking about the logo. So yeah, so they were talking about the logo, but their daughter had actually made these and told them to give to somebody who they thought was worthy. And so, you know, they thought I was worthy. I was over there taking photos and a little bit of video of the game. And so they're out of Saskatchewan, Canada, and they were just going around, traveling around. They were passing through Texas, and they were awesome couple to meet. So I really appreciate you guys. Uh, Thank you very much. I really appreciate these. These are really awesome. Really warm as well. And another thing that was pretty recent. They had the Crimson Experience over at Capernaum Studios in Poolsville, Texas. And I did a concept film with them that they're working on getting funding for. They're going to be pitching it later on, but to Eddie Gomez. Oops, I just saw that was still up there. Uh, Eddie Gomez had actually gifted me something, and it was this. Brother, made it to the trailer. I'm pretty excited. It is a bison jaw, and this thing is powerful. Look, um, I would like to get another one, but that is awesome. Hello, my sister Benita. It's good to see you on here. Thank you for watching. And so that keep an eye out for it. That's a project that's going to be coming up, but it's Washington's Armor Bulletproof. They are working on it currently, as well as working on getting funding. So if you see anything to pop up for it, if you see anything for feedback at Capernaum Studios, give us some good feedback. See if maybe we can get some market research on it. Okay. But anyways, I'm not going to say anything more about it just because there is an NDA involved in everything. So I'm not going to give any plot or anything. might say that that was cool. And so I thank Capernaum and all them for that, as well as coming up, and I'm wondering if it is ready. So I'm gonna go into the powwows real quick. Um, Will, do you have those flyers for me so that way I can go ahead and follow along while you put it on the page? Let me see. Okay, there's the first one right there. So what we have coming up, and this is on this Saturday, is the UTA powwow. Now, this is a benefit powwow that helps out the students there as well, and admission is free. And so feel free to go along. Uh, Sorry, there's the address. Go ahead and put it on loop. If you put it on loop, it'll keep playing it. But oh, there's the address. Feel free to come out, join us. Uh, all these chemtrails, yeah, that's crazy. uh, Thank you guys for all joining us. Freedom Nathan, Kia Ora from. Ooh, man, I don't want to butcher that. I appreciate all of you guys for joining us. I'll put it up on the screen here a little bit. Now, if you guys are here in North Texas or in Texas and you want to go to the powwow, this is going to be from this is going to last all the way till 10 p.m. There's going to be vendors there. There's going to be Indian tacos for sale. Me personally, I'm part of the stickball team. So if you can go ahead and remove the flyer now, and I'm part of the stickball demonstration team. So I like to play with DFW Kabucha. We practice every Sunday in Dallas at Keys Park, and we will actually be doing the stickball demonstration from 3 until 5 p.m. in the gym. All right. So come out there, visit us, hang out, play a little stickball with us. It's going to be nice and easy. So, yeah, that is a great point. Uh, there is a lot, which I know a few years ago wasn't as bad, but it seems like there's a constant need to try to poison us. But I'm not going to get into that. You know, but it all goes into the water, and that's what a lot of people don't realize is, and a lot of people don't think about is that it's coming in through our air, it's coming in through our body. That's why we tend to have a little bit more acne. The skin is like a sponge, and so gotta take care of it. Gotta keep it clean. All right, gotta exfoliate. You also got to detox it. Now, that's why I did partner with Water Pure Texas, is because they do use a patented process which helps, and it's a mineral that is actually used for detoxing heavy metals. It's made using zeolite, and if you look up zeolite, you will see that it is actually used for detox. So that's why I partnered with Water Pure, because it's able to detox the heavy metals that are coming from those. So definitely something to look into. And of course, don't take my word for it. Google zeolite. You know, always do your own research. And so, but I also wanted to say, give a shout out here. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. I don't want to mess up that second word, okay? Because I know that I will probably butcher it. But I really appreciate you for joining us today. Let me see what time it is. Okay. And then the second powwow that we have coming up, if you want to go ahead and play the second flyer, Will's my producer for all of us who don't know, is the IIAC powwow. Now, this one's coming up in April 5th and 6th, and that one right there does allow, it's free admission, it's free to park, and they do have a campground, but a lot of times, I think they charge the camp unless you're part of it. We will be doing a stickball demonstration each day here as well. So come out, have some fun, watch some dancers, some drummers, as well as check out some of the vendors. Pretty awesome, pretty good powwow. It's going to be at an outdoor museum, and that's why it's 2 days. All right, and then you can go ahead and take that one off real quick, Will. Appreciate it. Now, there is one topic that I do want to bring up, and this is something that is prevalent here in Texas. There's there's a Native American American Indian Native Studies course that is here in Texas that is coming up on renewal, and the state is trying to get rid of it. There is only currently three schools that are teaching Native American studies or Indigenous studies, and so I'm gonna play a little video here in a second. And what that's going to do is it's going to talk a little bit about the program. There's a QR code that we've put in right next to it. So that way, if you want, go and sign the petition. There's a school in Austin, Texas that also wants to present the Native American Indian Studies. The school in Grand Prairie is actually that does it. Theirs is up for renewal. So actually, this month, I believe. So sign it, or the video will have more information than I can give. I apologize, but please sign the petition. Tell them that you do, the representatives, that you do want these studies here in the schools because there is a miseducation and they are trying to erase the real history. One thing that is and it's a quote, and I can't remember who said it, but I do remember it wasn't a video game. It was history is written by the victors. And unfortunately, that was not us. So they do try to change our history as well as try to eliminate our history from the textbooks. So, Will, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and hit play.
Currently, only 3 out of over 1,000 school districts across Texas have an American Indians Native Studies course, but other school districts such as Austin and San Antonio have expressed their interest to teach this course, which is why we need your help to make sure this course gets renewed this winter. For a little bit of context, the American Indian Native Studies course is currently offered as a pilot course in Grand Prairie ISD, and it is up for renewal at the end of this academic year. The renewal would renew the existing course that is already approved and make it available to teach in school districts across Texas for the next 5 years. Unfortunately, the renewal process has not been placed on the agenda at the State Board of Education meeting this January, which is why we need your help. Because school districts often define their calendar for the next academic year in the early winter, we need this course to be renewed as soon as possible so that it has a chance to be offered next year. Please help us email State Board of Education Chair Kinsey through the link in our bio or in the caption below to make sure that the American Indian Native Studies course renewal and adoption be placed on the next available agenda. Thank you guys so much. Currently, only 3 out of over
All right. And so, if you can help out with that, that would be greatly appreciated. Uh, that is definitely something that I feel that shouldn't be skipped out on. I know that there was a lot of things coming up in the past, not too long back in Austin, where they were trying to get it passed, but what we need is we need more support to get that passed. Now, let me see what is next. 718. Again, I do appreciate everybody for joining us. Now, here's something whenever it comes to the film, there is a lot of separation between some people. It's not everybody, but there's a lot of separation out there and there's a lot of division. And the same goes for everyday society. And so my friend Chris had actually, who was a previous guest of ours, uh, Chris Siegler, had actually shared something to me, which was off of Facebook. And I'm trying to bring it up now so that way and it won't show, but nope, actually that's the wrong thing. But it has a good point to it, and so I'm trying to get to it. But while I'm looking for that, let me go ahead and talk about some of the studies that I had gone to recently. I started doing a couple of acting classes, and I'm pretty happy to say that after one of my first classes with the IFFV or IFFT out of Canada, that I feel very confident in where the career is going, okay? I feel happy about it. I got to experience the script, a monologue that I had been practicing for a workshop actually for Ronnie Hummel Productions. I went to her workshop and I did this monologue and it was all right. I thought it was pretty good at the time. However, after I had actually had time to practice it with this group out of Canada, this acting group out of Canada, I felt like I definitely could have done much better. He taught me some new techniques about being in the moment, feeling the emotions, and then creating the character, or feeling what the character felt and being the character. And so, I felt like I did a much better job whenever I did it then. So I'm gonna record it again and, see if I can put it out. But I really appreciate Ronnie Hummel for bringing me in and showing me, that monologue as well as, helping me out because at first, for me, I tend to struggle a little bit whenever it comes to standing in front of people. Uh, yeah, do media. I was I did a lot of different things where I did talk in front of people. I've done presentations, but for some reason, whenever I do auditions in front of people, it's a little bit different to me, and I get nervous, and so I'll fall out of character very easily. Versus doing a self tape, which is where I tend to feel a lot more comfortable at. But one thing that I always say that is very true, and it's true in any career, is that if you like to if you stay comfortable, then you're not going to move forward. You're not going to succeed. You got to get used to doing something that's uncomfortable. So if it's uncomfortable to you, as long as it's appropriate, if it's uncomfortable, do it because that's how you improve as a person. Because after you do it, then you start feeling more, you know, like I said, comfortable. It makes it easier. So like I used to be self-conscious about, not taking off my shirt all the time. But, for different roles or playing or being, for swimming pool or anything like that. However, I did a commercial at WinStar and at the uh WinStar commercial, they said, "Hey, you get into the pool, you're gonna have a little bit more screen time, but you have to take your shirt off." And so I was like, do I really want to do that? Everybody else was saying no. I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'll do it. And so I went out there, I did it. After I did that, I was like, you know what? I didn't see the commercial. Of course, I wasn't very visible, anyways. However, I didn't know what was going to make it on there as footage. And so I figured, you know what? Since I've already done it there, I can go ahead and, do it elsewhere too. So like whenever I go to the steam room or the sauna, I can take off my shirt now and not be too self-conscious. If you see me on this at practice for for stickball, you'll see that, if it's hot outside, I'll take it off. But, it's because I got comfortable with it, after I did it. So it does help out and Will even said that, he played a werewolf, including a pretty nude scene, so turning back to human form. So that's pretty cool. It is uncomfortable, but you know what? It helps you become better. It helps you become a better person. And same with me, if I had stayed the way that I was, because I've never done sales before I did some of the door-to-door stuff. And if it wasn't for getting out of my comfort, I wouldn't have built up the charisma that I have now, the ability to follow, you know, to network myself. That's one big thing that whenever it comes to being an actor or anybody in the media is networking is super important. You'll hear it over and over and over again from multiple of our guests on the show. And it is networking, so, you know, that's also sales, because whenever I did door-to-door sales, I had to market myself. Hey, Damien. I had to do marketing myself. I had to let everybody know that, that how I am different because my shingles is no different than anybody else's shingles out there. We all are singing the same shingles. And so what my thing is that, it's a trust thing. You got to trust that I'm telling you the damage on your roof is real. And, for me, I show photos, so it's pretty obvious. But after that, you got to trust that I'm going to get it approved by the insurance. I got to trust you to hand over the start check and all the checks that come from the insurance. And then I got to trust or then you got to trust me to put the roof on, and I got to trust you for the final check. So it's all about trust. Why can you trust me? Uh, know that I'm professional. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm talking about. Same with the pension reviews. You got to trust that I know what I'm talking about, that I keep up with the laws. I'm keeping up with the retirement laws as well as, different, IRS rules. So it's all about trust. And I know I'm starting to ramble a little bit, but anyways, uh, you gotta market yourself. gotta network yourself. If you're too shy to go talk to people on set, if you're too shy to introduce yourself or apply for casting calls, you're not gonna move forward. You gotta get out there, put yourself out there. You're going to hear a bunch of no's, a bunch of no's. However, all it takes is that one yes. And next thing you know, you're in there, you're acting, you're getting experience, you're getting your name out there, you're starting to be known. And that's all it takes, is you may hear 99 no's or not even reply backs. Most of the time, that's how it is. You may not even hear a reply back, but that one can change. And then next thing you know, you're out there, you're acting, you're having fun, and you're being the character, and it's exciting. I enjoy it. I'm getting reels. I'm moving up. It is awesome. I want to see everybody else move up as well. Okay. And now, Duke and oh, so Duke and Christine, their daughters' names are Ashley, Amber, and Kalisa. They are the ones that I mentioned earlier about the Black Hawk Gloves. Thank you guys very much. That was at the FAM stickball game. I really appreciate you guys. Now, let's see. Going into it, we are going to actually get ready to introduce Stephanie. It is just about time. I believe that she is in the studio now, and our digital studio. And so I'm excited to introduce her, which I will do when we come back from a word from my sponsor, as well as an intro video from one of Stephanie's TikToks. And so it's Stephanie Big Eagle, and actress, model, author, vocalist, uh, educator, as well as traditional tattoo artist. She does a plethora of things. She's a jack of all trades whenever it comes to all that. So, Will, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and cue up our sponsor video as well as.
Man, your show's gonna be awesome, bro. Your show's gonna be awesome.
This episode is brought to you by Honeybee Funds. Honeybee is a nonprofit organization set up to help house homeless people that fall through all the cracks of other help. Homelessness in America has skyrocketed since 2020, and it's senseless in the wealthiest country in America. Outside of natural disasters, Honeybee believes there is no reason for homelessness in America. Some people will fall through the cracks because they have no children, no elderly living in their household. Some homeless people are not recovering from drug addiction or recently released from jail, so they are not viewed as priority for housing. Honeybee Funds is set up to help homeless find a home, even if they have large dog that they count as part of their family. Email charliepooch131@gmail.com if you wish to contribute to Honeybee Funds. Now we will return back to our...
What radicalized me? It was the buildup effect of a childhood raised in complete darkness, where I was told that my Native American side of my blood was no good, worthless, and that my relatives there were good-for-nothing drunks. It was having to literally escape this influence at 18, and then, years later, going into an intensive discovery about the truth of who my people really were and the things that we endured. It was finding out about broken treaties. It was finding out that reservations were prisoner of war camps. It was finding out that my people were held there by soldiers, and that children were removed from their parents illegally and placed into boarding schools that erased our culture and whose main goal was assimilation into European culture. It was then, after that, traveling to Rapid City and seeing my people homeless on the streets and treated like dirt. By way of the 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty, is considered the heart of our ancestral and treaty homelands. It was then, after getting stuck in a sticky situation, getting thrown in jail with no due process of law, and having my young child removed from my custody because it was deemed that I was neglecting him because of my imprisonment, where I was held within incredibly high bond, leaving me unable to bond out. My child was placed due to secret court proceedings under the care of CPS. The day after, my bond was reduced and I was able to bond out. It was months and months of me filing paperwork declaring that I was given no due process of law and therefore my case should be dismissed and my child returned to me because their definitions of abuse and neglect did not align with the reality. It was coming in for 1-hour visits with my son every week and seeing the bruises all over his arm, seeing the bite marks all over his body, seeing his regressed behavior and being told that that was normal for his age and that I shouldn't be concerned about it. It was filing every piece of paperwork that I could, every legal document that supported my case. It was meeting their every request that they made of me in order to have my child returned. And then it was slowly realizing that there was no justice for someone like me. It was when the judge labeled me as crazy and canceled the one trial that they actually gave me, pending the results of a psychiatric evaluation because I found where they were holding my son, knocked on their door and demanded that they give me my son back. It was having my parental rights to my son permanently removed before ever being convicted of any charges. It was from firsthand experience of what they are actually willing to do and how far they will take it when you speak of treaty rights, when you speak of sovereignty, when you refuse to play their game. That radicalized me. And from that point forward, I said I will share my story and I will never again be put in the position where I won't have access to a group of people that will know what's happening to me as it's happening. That is why I share my story without holding back. And that is why I say to you who are listening, their systems aren't built for those of us who want to break free. They are designed to keep us trapped. And if you think that their systems and their courts are going to uphold your rights and their promises and their legal duties and their legal obligations, if you don't conform and play their game, they will absolutely not. They will do whatever they want to you. Keep that in mind as we collectively move forward and attempt to find solutions for what we are collectively facing. They did it before and they will do it again. We have spiritual power that cannot be broken. Know that their time it's about over. The boundary line has been drawn. All we need to do is to drop our fear, to let that go, and watch everything shift. What radicalized?
Hey, Steph.
Hey.
Sorry, I keep messing that up. uh, Thank you for joining us today. Now, that was very powerful. Now, I do want to say, thanks to some of our viewers real quick for who are joining us. Uh, I appreciate it. We all appreciate it. Thanks coming soon. He was Mario's on our last podcast. Now, that was actually a very powerful one. I know that a lot of people tend to use some of your educational ones about the white calf, about the prophecy, but I wanted to show a more, about you, because the podcast is, yeah, we're going to talk about your history and how you got into the entertainment industry, but you've had some struggles as well too, and so I like to also bring in, the human side of our guests as well. So that way people kind of build a connection with you. That's why we have the comments and we open it up to questions to the public as well. But if you wouldn't mind, give us a quick introduction to who you are and where you're from.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Big Eagle. And on my father's side, I am Ihangtuan Dakota, Kuwichasha, Lakota, and Ishanti Dakota. On my mother's side, I'm mixed, Celtic, Nordic, and a little splash of Haudenosaunee Nation. So it's an honor to be here today to speak with all of you. And I have, from the time I was a little baby, traveled all over the world. So a lot of my influence and who I am involves a lot of concepts of where I've been and where I've traveled and all the people I've met. So I like that, it's this, I think that a lot of us deal with a little bit of an identity issue, an identity crisis, simply because we're, as Indigenous people, we're living in a post-apocalyptic world. And so that is something that I have personally struggled with a lot. Now I embrace all aspects of myself and all the parts of who I am, and I bring that into all of the work that I do. So it's an honor to be here tonight.
Oh, we're honored to have you here as well. And some of the things that I saw with that, was uh like you said, you embrace all of who you are and everything. whenever most people discover that they're indigenous or that they have indigenous roots and they start looking up the history of what happened to our people, some people get angry up front, other people get sad, other people are just sadness that turns into anger. How did it translate for you? Where was it kind of like a anger feeling that you had, or
I would
how did
definitely say that when I first really started finding out the truth, it was definitely anger
mm-hmm,
and a mixture of sadness as well. But the first feelings that I had was anger.
mm-hmm,
And a lot of that translated into, me getting with the video that was introduced. A lot of my story deals with how that anger, I wouldn't say it consumed me because I do believe that we have a righteous anger as
mm-hmm,
indigenous people, and righteous anger from the way I see it, has to have been a part of our evolution, our survival as a species, as a people. There's a righteous anger that we can channel appropriately to create change and to guide us into certain aspects of how we can preserve ourselves and our nations. And so I think it's really important for us as Indigenous people to learn how to channel our anger. And I may not have channeled it in the best way. However, the situation that led me into being held in jail as a political prisoner did deal with having some righteous anger and
mm-hmm.
acting on that. And then when we act on that, it led to a reaction from people who are currently in a position of authority, not wanting us to be able to express our power, our rights, our sovereignty. So there is a certain level of anger that I think that we all have an entitlement to, and that is a part of us. But how do we channel that, appropriately, so it doesn't separate us from our families?
And the only reason why I wanted to bring it up is because I've met others who have had the same struggles and the same, identity crisis. And I just wanted them all to know that, hey, you're not alone. It's also kind of reoccurring with a lot of the other indigenous entertainers that are here as well. That found out later on that they were indigenous, that were raised, to not know or to either not like it. Because that is something that happened during the boarding school time era. Was if you could avoid being associated with being Native American, and most of them would walk away. They wouldn't even admit still today that they're indigenous, and so there's a lot of bloodlines that were lost, and a lot of people who don't know that they're indigenous, and so some of them may find out a little bit later on and feel the anger as well. Just want to know that they're not alone. That it is a common feeling that happens when you find out.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to that because I too was raised that way, where I was raised up with a family, and the way that I was raised was in a very judgmental, abusive, very prison-like environment where I wasn't it was restricted to what content I had access to, the music that I listened to, the friends that I had, the influences that I had to the outside world was very restricted. And so because of that, I grew up with this idea that my native side of the family was no good, that they were dangerous, that they were all they did was abuse substances, and that I had to stay far away from that. That's the way I was raised, and I believed in that, and then because of the way that I was treated, I felt it was because of the native side, so I really was very closed off growing up to who I was. And I would say I was so closed off and so restricted that there couldn't have been any person who could come to me and open up that side of me. And so what happened in my experience that opened me up to this side was that I started to have these dreams. When I was around 18 or 19, I started to have who must have been one of my relatives that would come and visit me in dreams. and he was dressed in full regalia. It was buckskin, and he had his bonnet on, and he would just come and sit with me and smile at me. And after a while, he would come up and he would just give me this big old hug. And it was the first time in my life that I had ever experienced what it must really be like to feel loved by one of your relatives, like a grandfather. And so that experience, and these were recurring dreams where that's all he would do was just come and visit me, sit with me, and hug me and give me that appropriate, true, real love. And that opened me up to saying, wow, there is something here that I need to explore. And it's beautiful and powerful. And so that started my whole journey of looking into my native side and finding out who my family was and where I come from.
That is awesome. And currently, you reside close to your people, right? Close to the traditional lands. So you're up in the Dakotas. I'm not going to say where, but you're up in the Dakotas.
Yep, I'm in the homelands. Yes.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So it's pretty cool. Now, since you've been up there, you seem to have learned a lot. I see, especially from the photos that I was able to gather and everything. You've turned your life around. You seem to be doing much better, and I'm glad that you're feeling better today.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sick, by the way. Recovering, I should say.
You seem to be doing very well, so I'm happy that you're doing much better.
Thank
Uh,
you.
I do want to get into a little bit of your background real quick, because you said that you had started off in the media world through modeling, correct?
Yes, that
Now,
was when, oh, go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. I was just gonna ask how long ago was that, and how did that come to be?
Okay, yeah, so I was actually when I was it was 18 years old, and I was working in, like, a pizza place, and it was like I like to tell this story because it's entertaining, but, the people that I worked with, it was like, how they say a lot of these pizza shops are these New York kind of mobster style fronts?
Yeah.
That was the kind of place I was working in, and so everybody that I worked with in there was a character. Think of New York mobsters, this is who I was working with, and so it was never a dull moment, always fun, and so I liked my job, and just because I was just coming out of high school, working at a pizza place like that was fun for me and it was entertaining. But obviously, I was meant to go in other directions. And so there was a woman who came in, and I was the person who would take people's orders. So she came in and placed an order. And after she placed her order, she just was kind of looking at me. And then she came up to me. She said, "How tall are you?" So I told her. She said, "Okay, how old are you?" And then she said, "You know, have you ever modeled before?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, would you like to model for me?" And it turns out that she was a designer for bridal gowns. And so of course, I said yes. I had never thought of it before this. I never thought about going into the modeling world or anything like that. But when she said that, yes, everything in me said yes. And so I started modeling for her. I would model at bridal events, conventions, runways, shows for her. And so right away, I got that experience and that led to modeling for Harley Davidson and quite a few other people on the runway. And so I got the experience of what it was like to be very quick behind the scenes, changing clothes right away and having to be on the runway and having that professional experience of being a model, but also the experience of getting paid very well for that.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it started when I was around 18.
That is awesome. And now, how long are you still modeling today?
I do model, although I've taken quite a step back from doing the runways. My last in 2023, I did New York Fashion Week. I did Paris Fashion Week before that, and I was doing a lot of runway modeling in the 2022 to 2023, I was doing a lot of that for Indigenous fashion designers. Currently, what I prefer to do is do photo shoots with fashion designers with their products, or photo shoots with just ideas of some sort of theme that we're putting out. And because I am a mother, of course, that's my number one position. So I have taken a little bit of a step back from the runway world just to focus on my son right now.
That is awesome. That's really good to hear. The next generation is definitely important. And so, I was working some other jobs before where that took me away from my kids and took me away from my kids for a long time out of the day. So I stepped back to, pay attention to them because I noticed that one thing with the youth is there's a lot of neglect issues, and that leads to some of the violent, disrespectful youth that we have today. And so it's good to see, some parents actually step back and take time to spend time with the kids and teach them the right way, and how to proper way to be.
That's right.
And so I know that just hearing about it, and all the struggles that you went through, of course, you could tell that your son is very important to you, and that is awesome.
Thank you.
Now, you're currently trying to get into acting. Is that right? You've kind of had a couple auditions. What do you think that how is that going for you right now?
Well, that's another situation where it wasn't something that I thought I was going to be doing. I didn't say, hey, I want to get into the acting world. I want to do this. It was another situation where I was approached. And so
Hmm.
I've been approached quite a few times and invited to audition. And the thing is that, our world currently is not, I think, exactly ready for the look of me or to deal with the controversy that comes with that. On a lot of auditions, even though I was invited by casting directors, I didn't necessarily get the roles.
Mm,
And so I just am waiting now. I'm not actively pursuing it. I even stepped back from the agents that I was working with.
mhm,
Let me just step back for a minute. Let me regroup. Let me put all of my focus into my son right now. Because actually, he has a look. He has an incredible look. And I want to get him into that world because when I come into that world, which I know it's only a matter of time, right? Just because it didn't happen for me right then doesn't mean it's not going to in the future. But what I'm envisioning that because I want my son to come with me.
mm,
And so I'm focusing on him and getting him everything he needs all and lined up. And then I'm also pursuing more going into the behind the scenes of it, the writing, the directing, the filming, the production, and all of that as well too, because we need more representation in all of those areas. And when we have more representation in those areas, then someone who has the look that I have, who's the tattoos, let's just say that straight up, the tattoos, there's not going to be as much discrimination against
mm.
it.
Now, going into the tattoos, that's actually a great lead into it. Your tattoos are not done by machine, correct?
Initially, they were,
Okay.
yes, but they were done in a traditional manner in terms of how they were designed and how they
Mhm.
were placed. So I got them done in New Zealand, and this was about 8 or 9 years ago, over by a close friend, a very,
Mhm.
very close friend. And he is Maori. So he's actually a cultural practitioner of the Maori culture. And so we had been talking back and forth for a long time and exchanging a lot of our dreams, our visions. And so we had developed a very close relationship. And he invited me because he knew that he had his full tamoko, which is the Maori term for their traditional tattoos. The men have them from head to toe. And he was the first haka dancer of his nation to revitalize the full head to toe tamoko instead of just painting it on. And so this was something that was very important to him, very close to him, and he was very educated in. And so he knew that I was really interested in revitalizing this because I had heard little snippets here and there about traditional tattooing amongst the tribes here in the Americas. But, 8, 9 years ago, 10 years ago, you didn't really hear anything about it. It was so suppressed. And so he invited me over to receive the tattoos from practitioners over there. And I was very hesitant for a long time and I said to him, I will not do this unless I can find evidence, strong evidence that there is tattooing amongst my tribe, the Lakota and Dakota. And so I deep dove into that and I can't remember the original source that I found, but I found something that convinced me and my heart, just like when that woman came up and asked me if I would model for her, and everything in me said yes. Once I found that evidence and he invited me again, everything in me said yes, go do this. This is for you. So I traveled over to New Zealand, and after, because he and I had exchanged dreams and visions for months, and we had sent a lot of that information to the tattoo artist, the Tamoko artist, who was going to be placing my tattoos. And so in their traditional way of tattooing, which is the way that I do it now too, is that they believe, they teach that our ancestors and their ancestors get together in the spirit world and they decide the design that is going to be channeled down through the artist, through the practitioner, to be given to the person who's going to be receiving their traditional tattoo. And so this was a challenge for him, of course, because I wasn't, Maori. So he couldn't give me those designs. He had to receive something for me that was meant for me that would be intended to help revitalize our traditional tattooing customs over here. And at the time, it was unheard of. So I didn't know of any artists over here that I trusted or that I could go to that he could do what he did for me. Mm-hmm. So he placed these tattoos for me, and which after a long journey, after about 6 years after I received these, that I actually meet with an elder who was Lakota and Dakota, who said that we did have chin markings, that we did have forehead tattoos, and that we had tattoos along the eyes here too. So it was a very long journey to get to that point. And that's why I tell people it's really important to follow your heart. Mm-hmm. And to trust. When you do have to have some proof of things too. You have to combine the two. But if there's something that's screaming to you that this is right for you and to follow your heart, you do that no matter what anybody else says.
That's awesome. Now, I did see a photo of you touching up your tattoo.
Yes.
So, was that difficult?
Oh my gosh, it was so difficult. I didn't know how difficult it was going to be, but so I had needed my tattoo retouched because I Sundanced for 4 years with after I would dance really hard, so I was always sweating. I didn't have sunscreen on, and that's one of the things is with tattoos, you're not supposed to let them be in the sun, right? Because they fade. And that's just what happens. So they faded, and I really needed some touch-ups, and I couldn't conceive of flying back to New Zealand. There was so much I had gone through and so many conditions that I just couldn't fly back to New Zealand to get them touched up by. And I couldn't really think of anyone that I would want to do them for me. Mm-hmm. So I just said, you know what? One day I said, I'm going to do it myself. And so I did. And so I'd say originally they were done by machine, but their touch up the most recent, because I retouched up all of the lines, all of it, except for the shading in. So all of the line work now has been retouched by hand poke by myself. So this is me looking in a mirror, trying to stretch the skin out, trying to get at the right angle for about 12 hours, and up here too, just retouching everything myself. And this is, I never thought that I could do this before, which is why I hadn't done it earlier. And one day I just said, you know what, I'm going to go for it. Turned out well, thank goodness.
It looks good. It really does.
Thank you.
It's I know that's probably something that I wouldn't be able to do. I mean, just kind of looking in the mirror trying to do something myself, I mess up anyways. So I got like crooked hands.
I know. I don't think I could have done it with machine, but hand poke let me take my time and
No,
one
was that a
dot at a
painful
time.
process? Because I know that with it being closer to the bone, nerves are a little bit closer to the skin. What did it hurt
Yeah.
a bit or?
Well, there were parts of it that did, especially because I have some that goes over my lip here. That
Mm,
is very
I saw
painful.
that.
And, as we get closer here, that's pretty painful, but you'd be surprised. The more painful tattoos, in my opinion, are like the inside of the hands here,
Hmm.
which were done hand poke by an artist from down in Mexico. So these put me in shock after I got these. The more painful part of doing these was actually the strain, because I was diagnosed with radial tunnel syndrome, which is inflamed nerves that cause a lot of wrist pain, and because I'm hypermobile. I just found all this stuff out. I'm hypermobile, so I actually, it causes you to have to press extra hard when you're trying to hold like a pen for writing, and for me, it's the tattoo instrument, and so it caused a lot of pain for me in those areas. So that was the most painful part of doing my own tattoo.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think I would have been able to do that to myself. I mean, I have one tattoo. I do want to get more, but I have one tattoo like right here, and it took about 6 hours to do. And the artist, he was like, I need to take a break. He's like, come back tomorrow, we'll finish it after 3 hours. So we did half one day, half the next day, and I met him through another friend who, after my tattoo was finished, he was like, hold on, let me take a look at it. He pour whiskey right on it. He's got these big old bear paw hands, smacked it. I was like, oh. He's
He
like, it is
broke it
now
in.
christened. Yeah.
He blessed it for you.
Exactly. And so we do have one question that did pop up, and it's where did the Big Eagle name come from?
Big
Where
Eagle
did it
is okay. Big Eagle is actually one of my, so here's a part of the story, and this is shared in my book too. If people have questions and they really want to know more about me, please check out my book. So
we'll talk
first
about it
of
in a minute too.
yes, my I was born with the last name Nice, Neiss. And so when I was adopted at 7 years old, I was given the name Newberg. And when I went back and reconnected with my family in my 20s, it turns out that, so I lived for a long time with the adopted name of Newberg, which had nothing to do with me and which carried for me a lot of shame because of what I was put through with my stepfather. That was my stepfather's name. And it symbolized abuse. It symbolized torture. It symbolized a lot I didn't want to hold on to anymore in my name.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to go back and change my name to what was actually my connection. And so when I went back and reconnected with my family, and talked to my dad, and he started connecting with other people in his family. And I think, probably a lot of Native families have this going on too, which is that my dad's dad on his birth certificate wasn't his actual dad either. So the niece name was also not a biologically connected name for me. So then it's like, okay, well, what am I going to do? What name am I going to choose that actually reflects my actual heritage, my lineage? And so when I went and I met with my auntie on the Lower Brule Reservation, she showed us our family tree from that side, which is my dad's side. And my dad's side is the Roulards and the Big Eagles. And so I went back in our family line and I could see where in the when they took our ancestors and they put them in the boarding schools and they started changing their names to, for example, it was Big Eagle and Begs from Her was my generational ancestors right there. I think either fourth or fifth generational ancestors. And then it was Big Eagle again. And then all of a sudden it changed to Roulard, which is a French name, right? Roulard, Roulard, Roulard. And so I said, because of all of this identity crisis I've had to go through my whole life, all of these years, most of my life having to carry a name that wasn't actually mine, why would I, when I'm going to empower myself by reclaiming an ancestral name that actually belongs to me, why would I choose? And this was after I had all that anger, right? Learning about everything they did to our ancestors when they put them in boarding schools and took away their names and their clothing, cut their hair, and demolished their spirits. Why would I go and reclaim what they put on us too? So I went back to before that and I took the name of my ancestors that I know were freedom fighters. Big Eagle. That's where that name comes from. And it changed my life and the resonance, the vibrational resonance of my frequency for the rest of my life. And now my son carries that name too.
That is awesome. Uh, that's actually really really cool to hear. Because even on my side too, my dad had actually adopted me whenever I was 2, and so that's where the Murillo last name comes from. My on my biological father's side is Rodriguez to the Padillas, which go back to the family that Geronimo left down in Mexico, on the Mexico side of the border, Mexico. But anyways, and so they ended up changing their name, and now they go by Padillas and Rodriguez, but they settled up in Wyoming. But you know, for me, I felt a bit more connected to the little dog, which is hello.
There, I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay. Sorry about that. I lost power. It
Oh
happens from
no.
time to time. That's why I'm kind of happy that Will has the host computer because I can still stream.
Oh, that's awesome. Just need a
And
little
so
firelight over there, huh?
I know, right? I don't
That's
know
what I'm
where
here
my
for.
Oh, hey, Will.
exactly. And so I'm still here, but we can keep going. It's just, I'm gonna look a little bit like a ghost, so
I like it. Change the whole vibe.
I'm just sitting in the dark, It's like I'm having a little camp out. I better keep that webpage open so that way it has some light. There we go. Anyways, it happens sometimes. Usually it's whenever it happens is when it
Use
storms
a
or something.
lighter.
Right. Uh, there we go. That's a torch. That won't work. Anyways, uh, here's one comment from one of our listeners tonight. And so, oh, hey Travis, this guy I've been on his podcast before too. He's got an indigenous podcast as well.
Oh, cool.
Uh, but anyways, uh, that's where Little Dog comes from because in mine I come from the Little Dog family, and I'm related to Chief Little Dog, who was a very well-known indigenous chief. He's in the museums. He's got some art up. He's got pictures up all over the place. and it's Imateoka one. So I wanted to reconnect with my culture because whenever I was younger, it was something that I took for granted, and oh, thank you. Right. It was something that I took for granted, and I didn't get to learn whenever I did have the opportunity to learn. And so whenever I left, I did take a language class that was in my people's language, which was Blackfoot language. And when I came to Texas, I went to Mansfield High School. They removed that as a language credit because it wasn't one of their approved languages. And so, they actually tried to hold me back a whole nother year at this high school. And, I was able to get my academics where they needed to be to where they were, I was able to graduate and I still graduated in that, and I still graduated, top 10% in the nation and whatnot. But I just, it's me returning to my roots because I realized as I got
I'm
older
gonna
that
capture
I
that
didn't.
creaking door for sound effects. You know that.
Oh, you can hear the door.
Uh, Creaking door.
Okay. Um, but you know, I wanted to reconnect because as I got older, I started to realize that, you know, it's up to me, it's up to us, it's up to our generation to either continue our people's legacy or, let it die. If we let it die, then it's our fault that it died. I don't want to be part of the problem. I want to be part of the reason why we are remembered. And so one thing that I've learned while being in the entertainment as industry, as well as being, indigenous, is that whether you like it or not, you represent indigenous people. And so is that the same with you as well?
Absolutely. And it's the same because I was so removed from it as a child. I think that that is a huge part of why I was so also because of my dreams, because I
Hmm.
have such profound dreams that I'm not trying to brag or anything. I'm just saying that they are. My dreams have helped shape my life and guide me and show me the truth about a lot of things. And so I tend to trust what's coming from my dreams more than a lot of times of what's coming in this from people or because some of my most negative experiences have been you know so I find that, and even in my dreams they told me what name to take.
Hmm.
So there's a vibrational frequency, a resonancy that comes through the name that we carry and
Hmm.
what we identify with. And so that's why we have our spirit names, our Indian names, and those things too. And so because they carry a certain frequency that our ancestors can see us and recognize us. And it's the same with our tattoos. Our tattoos, when they're applied with intention and meaning and with the right artist and with everything offerings and you come with the right energy and you prepare for this, then they carry a frequency and a resonancy as well that your ancestors can see that spirit world. And so for me, all of those aspects are really important because I was raised in such a hellish environment. I was raised in the dark. And those are the things that helped me come out of that. So I other people's opinions, others that really has never had much of an impact on me because the greatest source of pain was other people. And so when I look back and I think, who was that relative who was visiting me in my dreams? It could have been Big Eagle. It could have been those things. So everything connects in that way. And those of us, there are many of us who want to go back to the way of life that our ancestors had. And it's not just living off the land, but it's what's going on inside of our hearts, the connection that we have. And so everything that we can do to get ourselves closer to that is really important. And so yeah, changing our names and this is something that my close friend taught me from the Maori Nation too, is that they, in their culture, they take on the names of their ancestors who, because the names hold power, right? And the names carry a certain frequency and energy. And so when we are thinking about the name that we're using, if we're doing it in the entertainment world, if we're doing it to reconnect or reestablish a connection with an ancestor, then it's really important to do that, because I was, for my whole life, I had carried a name that wasn't mine. Now I'm actually carrying a name that actually is in my DNA, in my bloodline. And ever since I did that, my whole life changed. And I'm wondering the same for you. Did your life start changing when you started to take that name as well?
Yeah, actually, I did notice that it started to change. Uh, you know, growing up, I had an anger. It was something that was pain that was handed down through my family of abuse and neglect and different stuff like that. And so it was handed down generationally. But as I got older, I kind of grew out of it. Whenever I did when I started going by my ancestor's name, because before my grandfather passed away, up there, his name is Howard Little Dog. He was the first indigenous park ranger on up there in Montana. But before he passed away, he said that, through the naming ceremony, that what we'd do is we'd pick out, as somebody through our ancestors' lineage, and that's who we'd pick out for the name. And the one that, like I said, had always kind of resonated with me was Little Dog. He was Chief Little Dog. He was alive in I believe it was like 1842, I want to say. But he was a chief, and he was I apologize. Usually all my stuff is saved here and all my information I talk about, but I'm still doing my research on him, learning more as I can. And in our language, it's Imateo Kawan, so little dogs Imateo Kawan, and that's why I use it in English. But whenever I say it to other people, I do introduce it, in Blackfeet. My life started to improve a bit more. I started feeling a bit more confident. I noticed that different things around me, because I used to have like a lot of really, bad luck, and that seemed to start to turn around. I was putting myself in a bunch of bad situations, and it was like almost like a refresh. That's whenever I really started connecting back to my culture again. And so, you know, but that's just kind of where I am. It's been a few years, because whenever I was doing it, I was actually doing roofing whenever I first started having that name taken on to me, and it wasn't actually, I hadn't been doing it the entire time I was roofing, because everybody knew me as Loft or Lofts or Lofty, which is all a play on my first legal name. Uh, but whenever it was Little Dog, it felt right. It was something that people started using, and actually, my other grandfather that was actually my great uncle, but he raised my mom, was he used to say something like where I was like a little bear. So I was going by that, but then Little Dog just kind of set in and just took over, and everybody was calling me Little Dog. Next thing I knew. And so I was like, you know what? I feel very honored to be known as Little Dog and to represent my nation as well.
Yeah, there you go. So
Now,
how did you say it again in Blackfeet?
Mateo Kawan.
Nice.
And so, but I want to circle back to something that you said earlier about frequency. And that is something that is actually very, very important that I wanted to bring up too, because, as for me as an actor, for something that you're trying to get into and it's for your son, a lot of our ancestors don't know that what acting is, as far as like, hey, because they're death scenes, but it puts out a certain vibration. And so, like on Bass Reeves, all the indigenous people, we went ahead, we smudged before the hanging scene, I had a scene where I thought I was gonna die in a film, and beforehand, I smudged and everything to prepare, because it was my mom through, one of our relatives up there that told us, hey, make sure and smudge. The ancestors don't know that, you know, that you're acting. That's why, like on sets, like The Exorcist, you hear about everything, all the crazy stuff that happened to the cast. Well, they didn't know that they were acting, so that vibration drew negative energy towards them in the form of hauntings. And so, like, death scenes, people dying, we always got to protect ourselves as well as, again, smudge to make sure and let our ancestors know, hey, this is not what I'm asking for myself. I am not calling this upon myself. In fact, I want to make sure that I protect myself against any negative actions coming back towards me. That this is not, this is not what I'm calling to me. Because there was one where I was gonna say, whenever I thought I was gonna die, I was gonna say it in my traditional tongue, but I was gonna say, it's a good day to die, because my character was a tough character, and so, but since I didn't have to say it, I felt a little bit better, but I did have a different, torture scene that was in there, so uh, I still smudged anyways, and so did some of the other actors. They joined me in smudging as well, and so uh, you know, smudging we smudged with sage, and it's an act of protecting because somebody did ask this right here, and so in a way it's a form of like prayer, as well as talking to our ancestors as far as the way that it's explained to me. We talk to our ancestors, and I don't like saying prayers or anything just because of what it's been turned into these days as far as different beliefs, but smudging is a way of protecting and warding off evil spirits as well as negative, well, vibrations, if you will. Uh, do you want to explain it in your culture as well?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same, and it's also a way of cleansing our heart, spirits, our vibration. It's even scientifically, it's been proven to clear bacteria from the air. So, and that's when you're
I have seen
using
that too.
sage. Yeah. So I use different medicines. I don't always use sage, and it depends on, I think it relates to, be careful. Don't be using white sage because that's a closed practice. But
Mhm.
rosemary, if you're not indigenous, is a good herb that you can use for that. You can grow it yourself and harvest it yourself and use it. So, but yes, when you take these energies of these plant medicines that are here to help us and protect us, then that's and then proper offerings for that. You use that connection that you have with these plant medicines that are here to help protect us and to help us grow. Because there are a lot of dark energies in this world.
Mhm. And saging can be more than that. Like you were talking about the different medicines. There's sage. We also use sweetgrass. You can use there's cedar as well too. There's different herbs that are able to be used whenever you smudge. So just it also depends on the situation. Like you were talking
Yep.
about. So anyways, I do appreciate you talking about that and bringing that up as well. We want to make sure that we follow proper, process whenever things are coming up, and kind of keep that in mind too, because my son also had a scene on, it hasn't been shown yet, but on 1923, and we made sure and smudge him before he did it as well too. And so, my whole family, we're all actors, so Uh, but always stay protected, and I always carry around some smudge that my mom actually gave me too. So it's good thing to have and keep on you. But anyways, moving on, I do want to talk about your book. You talked a little bit about your struggles and some of the stuff that's in your book already. What led up to you writing? What made you feel like, hey, I think that I should write a book? What was the inspiration?
Um, so it was inspiration that came from a very dark place. And so that's why I hesitate around the word inspiration, because the reason that I wrote my book was it was back in 2019. I had lost a friend that was he was Maori, and he was someone who was a spiritual leader for his
Hmm.
people. Very positive, very focused on helping people to navigate these mental health storms that we have. Most people around the world, where a lot of us are dealing with the same sort of issues. However, one day I received the news that he took his life. And so it really affected me. I was very shaken by it. I was tormented by it. And I understand it took me days to get over it. And I was praying about it. And, because I've been there many times myself, I've tried many times. And I don't think that this is a concept that is foreign to a lot of Indigenous people, because a lot of us live and are exposed to very abusive environments, to and not only that, but we're carrying a lot of trauma that was passed down to us in our DNA from what our ancestors went through. And then when you look at the reality of the world, the anger that's there, the unfairness of it all, it can be very triggering, and it can make a lot of us not want to be here. And in fact, it's some people look down on it, but I don't think that they understand sometimes how it can feel like to be in a position where it feels like the only way to escape is to pass on. And so I was thinking about what my friend was going through and what he must have been feeling in those moments, and thinking about all the times that I had also felt that way multiple times in my life, and all of our people who have felt that way multiple times in our lives. I said, what can I do to help this? Is there anything I can do to make a positive impact? So I thought about it and I went to sleep. And the next morning I woke up, and that was the insight that I had, was to write a book to share my story. Because sharing my story, which is a survival story, in a sense, it is a rising out of the darkness story. It's an empowerment, resilience story. And so I wanted to share that. And I really do recommend that for people through healing and who have been through a lot of darkness in their lives. It was one of the most difficult things I ever did, was to write my story, was to write that book. Because when you're sharing that kind of a story, you have to go back and relive all of those moments, not just once, but over and over and over again. Because you're writing about it, you want to make sure you got all your dates right and everything and all of the details. And you're editing it as you're going along. So if you've ever done writing, it's you go over and over and over it. So I had to relive all of that over and over and over. But my motivation was that I wanted to help other people to know, those who were led to read my book or to hear my story, to know that they're not alone, and that these are the things that helped me along my path, to let me know that I wasn't alone. And through that, it's the journey to discovering ourselves, despite everything, it seems like everything in the world trying to stuff you back underground. And so that's why that was the inspiration behind sharing my story.
That's very powerful. That's very strong, and really appreciate that. You know, and if you wouldn't mind going and sharing the title of your book as well too, 'cause I know that realize that we need to
Yep.
share it as well.
It's called
And
Thunderbird Rising, a memoir of reconnection, resilience, and empowerment.
where did the number? Where'd you get the I guess the idea to call it Thunderbird Rising? If you don't mind.
So as I really started to come understanding who I was, and the energies that I worked with, and the Thunderbird has been a medicine that I worked with, and it helped me through a lot of the dark times I was in. I mean, I remember having dreams about thunderbirds, lightning, multiple times. And I never really understood what that meant until I started to go into the Sundance world. And who brought me into the Sundance world and was Ehioka. And so go into this journey of understanding who I was through the energy of what a Thunderbird is, right? They walk backwards through this world. And I feel like my whole life I've learned things the backwards way. I've done things, you know, I had to go back and relearn a lot of things. I had to, have moments and what is lightning itself? That's what the beings bring, right? Is the lightnings. And so lightning in and of itself is the light in the dark. But lightning also brings life. Without the lightning, we wouldn't have the nitrogen that is fixed in the air that brings life to the soil, that brings that energy. It's a life-giving energy. So there's that personal connection I have to it, but also their medicine in and of itself. And then if you connect the thunder being to another and a similar energy, which is the phoenix. It's like the rising out of the ashes. It's like, being burned down to nothing, but still coming to life from that. And so, of course, I went with Thunderbird because that's the cultural connection, but then the rising from it. So it's that's my personal story of how I rose from that darkness and came into the empowerment of being myself and standing fully, unapologetically into myself, and how I see that our people can do the same thing. And many of us are becoming that element of Thunderbirds rising or the Phoenix rising.
That is awesome. That's very inspirational. As we have a lot of our commenters that saying that they actually relate to what you're saying, and especially with the you know, I guess the mental health state that crisis, I guess you would more or less say that we're in as and it's not just our countries globally. Everybody's going through a rough time. It's good to have some inspiration to keep going. As well as have somebody to inspire us. And so, where can people find your book at?
It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble online. And if you are a library and you want to carry it, you can go through Ingram Spark. And it's available for wholesale in any bookstore and anyone who wants to order on wholesale through Ingram Spark as well. I believe it's also on Kibo and several other. If you want to get the ebook, it's available on quite a few places internationally and here in the States as well.
That's awesome. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about is something that I saw it on your TikTok, and I know that you mentioned it before, but you also sing too.
I do. Yes. So, yeah, I was gonna use to sing tonight, but I don't know how great it would be because my throat was the part that was most affected by this recent little going under the weather that I've been
No, I
experiencing.
understand. No, I
But
totally
yes,
get it. It's okay. We'll have to
I
get you on
do
another day.
sing. Exactly. And I do sing, and it's music has ever since I was in high school and even before in grade school, the first instrument that I ever played was the violin. And so I played from grade school to a little beyond high school, and I was classically trained violinist. Very adept. I played for one of the most um, high school symphonies in the United States, and I played second chair. So my introduction into music was through playing the violin. And so I ended up, having life happen after I got out of high school. I didn't get in a very good relationship. and I had kids, and I had to provide. I was in a relationship with a man who did not provide, and so I had to provide diapers, and so I sold my instrument. And so it was, I never picked the instrument back up because I wanted to have nails. Okay.
I
I
understand.
wanted to have nails.
Yeah. Can't
So,
do both.
no, I was one or the other. And after putting it down for a while, I said, I love my nails and I want to have them grow. So I started, but I love the violin. I have many, many times been tempted to pick it back up. Although I'm very long-limbed and big hands. For a woman, I have very long fingers. And so the violin was always kind of a cramped instrument for me. But I really do carry the training of that with me. Music has always, and what's interesting is at first I could create music without reading the music in front of me. And so as a classically trained violinist, I couldn't play anything without that music out of my own mind. I couldn't. But when I sold my instrument and I put that down for a while, reading the music, and I have had some head trauma, some injuries. It's like everything got rewired a little bit. And then it got to the point where I couldn't read music anymore. It's like I totally forgot how to read music. And so when I started to pick up that, I was singing. I also played the hand drums, the djembe drums. I played the flutes. I played a lot of different instruments that I can pick up and just play because of my classical training that I had. And that has always stuck with me. I learned that music intuitively, so by ear. And it changed my whole relationship with music. It was no longer constrained to a paper that I had to read it from. It instead was coming from my heart. So it was meant to be that I put that instrument down and got a little vain and wanted some nails. Because now I create music from the heart. And that is actually something that I'm really have a goal that this year I really want to put out some new music. I want to collaborate with other artists. I actually got a handpan, which is, have you ever heard of what a handpan? Because I love to play instruments like this. Um,
Yeah,
it's kind of like it's a beautiful sounding instrument that I want to start making music with, and I'm going to be singing a lot more too because I also write my own songs.
that is awesome. Yeah, when I was younger, I used to play guitar. I have not played it in a long time. But I used to play guitar and I liked playing it, but the and I did a little bit of punk rock and stuff like that. But I think what stuck with me the most, what I like the most, and I don't know why, but if I pick up a guitar, I can still play it today, is Greensleeves, a classical
Oh,
song.
cool.
Uh, and so, but that for some reason that's the one song that just stuck in my head. But that's how I was trained up was, finger picking and classical and stuff like that as well. And I just had a natural affinity towards the guitar and different instruments. And I sing. I'm a bathroom singer, but a shower singer. But some of the ones who's actually heard me tell me that I'm pretty good. It's just there's a lot of things that I'm getting more bold with, and my voice isn't one of them yet. But I used to drum back in high school with my grandpa Forrest, and I used to do a little bit of the drum circle for a little bit, and we did northern style, and northern style is really high pitch,
Yeah.
and so you know, it was kind of easy to translate over to singing, but the problem was that I had was that I was singing in a high pitch too, and so I had to introduce a lot of the bass back into my voice when I sing. And
Yeah.
so, but so how long has it been that you've been singing? And when was? 'Cause I know that you said that you wrote your own music. Have you had any music come out in the past?
Yeah, I have a couple songs out there. But like how you said you were a bathroom singer, I recorded them in the bathroom. So
Nice.
I have one song that I did with a producer that she actually did an incredible job. And so we did it in the studio with all the, the mics and all the, and it was so beautiful. Um, it's called When the Sun Sets Over the World. And you can, if you go to my link tree, it's in my bio. It has my SoundCloud attached to it, and you can listen to that song. And that song was, I ended up not working with her because we were going to put a whole album out, and I ended up just because she got busy doing other projects, and I had a tragedy happen in my family at that time, and it kind of just derailed everything. And that's the way things go in entertainment world. As you must know, things sometimes just derail, and you just have to go with that and say, okay, this wasn't the time. There's going to be another time for it, though. So you don't give up on things if they don't work out right away. Just let it reshape itself, give it a little time, and allow that reconfiguration to happen. But that song, When the Sun Sets Over the World, was a song that I have been singing for many years. And the first time I heard it was back when I lived in California, and I was going to DQ University, which is Daganawida Quetzalcoatl University. And this was California's only tribal college that at the time that I was out there, it was under a student and elder occupation because there was supposed some embezzlement of funds, and then it lost its accreditation, and then the school closed down. But the way that the land was, wow, let there be light.
Right?
There you
I'm
go.
blind now.
Well, the timing was
The vibration.
perfect.
I know, right?
So, what the way that land that to establish that tribal college was gained was through the 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty, which has a stipulation that says that any land, surplus army land, can be taken back or given back to tribal nations. And so through that stipulation in the treaty, there was some activists that jumped over the fence and claimed it. And that's how it became DQ University. And so I was out there at the time as one of the activists on grounds. Our presence was what was needed to keep it going. And so during that time, I was out there a lot. I was singing a lot, and I got taught this song. It was actually a man that sang the song, and the history behind the song was it was a lover's song that was sung, back when in the 1800s, early 1900s, when the colonization first came to California, and there was this high cliff, and the woman sang this song before she jumped off because she didn't want to get taken into captivity because of what would happen to her. So these lovers actually both jumped off together so that they wouldn't have that happen. But this was the song for them. And so I started to learn that song, and it was actually sung quite differently than the way I sing it now. And that song always stuck with me. And it said, there's chanting, and then it says, when the sun sets over the world, I'll be thinking of you. No matter how far away, I will always love you. And so I started to sing that song because I felt it so much in my heart, and the style of singing the song started to change until it just became like mine. And I would sing this song anytime I missed my kids, because if you read my book, you hear about the journey with my children. I've had my children ripped from me over and over and over, and very traumatic, just like when they were taking the children from our ancestors and putting them in boarding schools. The names have just changed. We have CPS now, we have agents now. And back then it was, what they were back then. But this song I would sing as a way of putting my voice and my energy and my prayer out there to those that I was separated from and those that I loved, to let them know that I was still there. I was still praying for them. I still loved them. And I used to sing this song when I was in jail too. And when I was in Rapid City, Pennington County Jail, and I was being held there as a political prisoner, I was never given a trial. When I did have a trial, they claimed that I was psychologically unstable and gave me denied my trial based on that I needed a psychiatric evaluation because I found my son that they were holding from me. And I went up to their door and I told him to give him back to me. Is that crazy? Or is that just a parent trying to protect their child? And so, it was times when it was 2 times that I sat. And so the second time they held me for 7 months. And during that time in Rapid City's Pennington County Jail, 99% of the inmate population was Lakota and Dakota. 99%. So in Rapid City, the civilian population of natives out there is maybe 10 to 11%. So, but the the inmate population was 99%, so that was mostly all of us natives sitting up in the prison, so that's still going on. But anyway, when we would go on lockdown, I would start to hear a beat on the wall. And that was my sisters. They were asking me to sing. And so I'd sung that song while we were in there for them too, because it brought them closer to their families and their children that they were missing. And so through music, for me, it has become, it wasn't always, but it has become an expression of resilience, of survival, of love, and of belonging, even when you feel like you don't belong, of bringing things together, even though you feel the separation. That's what music has become for me. And I think that's why everything else has been put on the back burner for now, so that I can come forward in that world for the rest of this year.
Yeah, and that makes sense, because of course, the government doesn't want, Native Americans standing up or any of us standing up for ourselves because, I mean, look what they did to Leonard Petier. He finally got out, you know, being finally pardoned after so many years in prison, and which I'm glad that he's out. But there are people that were at the community college in Browning that were, after he was arrested, and basically a political prisoner. They sent out a letter to all the A members and all the other tribes and said that, if you ever stand up to the U.S. government, what happened to him will happen to you as well. And they threatened to say that, and this was the FBI that said it out. They said that, that he will never get out of prison. And the first time that he was supposed to get out of prison was around the time that the Patriot Act was actually signed into office, by the president. And I believe that the Patriot Act was under George W. Bush, and that ensured that he was going to stay in prison as a terrorist. And so, for it to see that, yes, they still try to hold on to their threats today. That's just crazy. It's like, hey, they couldn't. I'm glad that you were able to get out. I'm it sucks that you were gone for so long and that they did that to you. But I'm glad that you were able to come out and be able to share your story with us. You know,
Yeah.
and so I'm really glad that you
And
could be here.
that has been one of my biggest motivations behind social media and building the platform that I have, is because back then when that happened, everybody, and the people that I did have around me didn't want to help me. In fact, my own mother, like, and it's another thing that this is why I tell people a lot of times you can't always trust your family too. And some people have that a good family that they come from, some people do not. And so I
Mhm.
was in a position where my own mother was writing letters to the judge telling them that I didn't deserve my children and that they should keep me there. And this was my first time ever being in legal trouble. I had not, this was it wasn't a normal situation for me. I no
Yeah.
alcohol, no drug use, it didn't this was just a person who did not like me very much, and that was came in the form of my own mother. And so I spent a lot of time when I was in there with nothing else to do but to just sit and wait and think and plan and strategize. I said, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that if this ever happens to me again or to one of my children or to somebody that I can help, that I'm going to have a platform to be able to make a difference. People are going to hear my story, and I'm going to make sure of that. And so I did plan to sue the state of South Dakota and Child Protection Services. But by the time my heart was healed enough to, because they did break my spirit for a while, by the time I was healed enough to actually pursue that, the statute of limitations had passed.
Mhm.
And it seems like it's all by design. But what's the next best thing I could do was to share my story, was to write a book.
That's really good. And one thing that most people don't know is that actually uh, CPS is a private company. They're private. They're not government ran. Although they do receive compensation from the state, a lot of compensation. Uh, they are actually privately owned and they have immunity across all states. Really messed up. It's something that I looked up and uh, that I found out a few years back, and I was like, wow, there's no way that that is legal at all. It's like like the Federal Reserve. It's
Yep.
not ran by the government. It's a private bank,
Right.
and so there's just so much crooked things that go on, just mostly because the United States is a corporation. It's not really a government. It's not really here for us, and yeah, that's what I'm saying, and it was a joke back in the day, but it's like, hey, you really think you should trust the government? Ask a native, you know? We'll tell you, watch out. Oh, we don't trust them at all. And we know
Yeah.
why. It's in our history. They betray the people constantly. I know everybody or a lot of people think very highly of different presidents, like say like Abraham Lincoln, right? He freed the slaves. Well, he was actually quoted saying that if he could, resolve the economic issues because the South had an upper hand without, freeing the slaves, he would do it. He did it because their labor was cheap because they had free labor. And that's the reason why he freed the slaves. Yet he was also responsible for executing, 18 indigenous men as well at one time and doing mass execution of indigenous people.
Mhm.
Some people like Theodore Roosevelt, they're like, oh, he got along with the natives. He was on quote, actually, as president, saying the only good native is a dead native. And so the government really doesn't look after the people. The government's out for itself and out for the dollar of itself, as well as the major corporations that run it. It's
That's
more of
right.
America Inc.
Yeah.
And so that's why, even, with standing up and everything, you got to be ready for the consequences. If you're going to stand up, be ready that you may face consequences, which is something that, you had to do. And unfortunately, some of our other, indigenous brothers and sisters have had to go through as well. And so, we really appreciate everything that you've done and, the way that, with your book and the way that you bring a light to it and put a spotlight on it as well, want to make sure that, we really push it out there and push your platform so that way, you already have a very large platform, but, for it to continue to grow, to make awareness, because it, indigenous right now, especially, we're starting to have more of like a world stage, where uh, the world, I call it a world government, but the United Nations are recognizing indigenous tribes, which is awesome. And people from other countries, they have high reverence of indigenous people. And so, you know, it's good that it's coming out now because we've all struggled. And even today, even though it's not happening today, you know, it's like people say, oh, it happened in the past, just leave it there. Well, it wasn't that long ago for our people. My grandmother was a victim of boarding home schools. It's that close to our people. Indigenous people weren't, well, under my family, we weren't U.S. citizens until I think believe it was my grandfather had gone to World War II, and that's what brought us to be citizens. Before then, indigenous people were not citizens. We were like Puerto Ricans. We were American territory, and that's what the reservations are, is American territory. It's actually written in our treaties, in our own constitution, on our tribes, to obey the United States Constitution, and that's just something that most people don't really know.
Yep. It's also written in federal law that the relationship between any federally recognized enrolled Indian and the government is that of ward and guard. So
Oh, for sure.
it's a subservient sort of language, and true sovereignty is not really recognized or granted by the United States government to our people. It's an illusion of
And that.
sovereignty.
Mhm. And that's why, like, if you look at the way that the tribes are written, that's why we're pedigreed. That's
Mm.
why it's not really a point of pride to go off of blood quantum, because whenever they did the blood quantum system, they walked down the line and said, you're half, you're quarter, you're full, you're half, you're quarter, you're full. They didn't go by any lineage whatsoever. They just literally went down the line saying what you are. Uh, you know, the way that the treaties are written is that whenever nobody's qualified to be within the tribe, I guess blood-wise to be considered part of the tribe, the government can come in and seek eminent domain over the reservations. And so the reason why, and people think that, oh, we get retributions from the government. That's where the money from. That's where the healthcare comes from. It's not. It's because of the treaties. In other words, what happened was the military came in and they told the chiefs, here, take this deal for the land, or we're going to come in and we're going to wipe you out with our military. And so the chiefs were just making the best decision for survival.
Yeah.
And so, that's why we're saying, that's why, again, history is written by the victor. And in this case, it was the U.S. government. That's why they're trying to wipe out our knowledge. That's why at the beginning of the episode, and something that I want to play through my future episodes as well, is about the Native American studies and education that's trying to be pushed here in Texas, because currently there's only 3 schools that teach this education, real history about what happened to us. Most of them is just a little touch on it, and then, oh yeah, they existed, and most people after that don't know that we're still around, you know? And so it's more eye-opening nowadays, but I remember whenever I was younger, we were, told to get on the computers in high school on my reservation and reach out to somebody from a different culture. And so we did that, and people didn't realize, they were like, oh, I didn't know Native Americans were still alive. I read about you guys in history books. I was like, it's inaccurate. And they see like
Yeah.
Pocahontas, the cartoon. And it's like,
Right.
that is extremely inaccurate. And
Well, and they
so,
even, or they only think of us as like, in the old days or in the old pictures, and
mhm,
so that's in a way social media has been a blessing for us to be able to put out, who we are now, who we are today, which is very diverse and very modern. Still connected though to our traditions and our customs, which many are being revitalized, which is very beautiful thing because against all odds, we're still here. And
definitely.
yeah.
And that's one thing that, I don't know if you saw the hashtag, that one of the hashtags I've been using is hashtag we are still here. And that also supports the Native American Studies bill. And so I do use that because, we are still here. We're all around them, and I'm enjoying a lot of the new shows that are coming out. I enjoy the new directors that are coming out, like, Sterling Harjo. reservation dogs. I always say res dogs, but reservation dogs. Showing modern day life on the reservation. It's not teepees. We're not riding around in horses. They showed the Ish kids.
Right.
And whenever I watched it, I was like, wow, that reminds me of the reservation straight up.
Yep.
And so, it's good to see us in these. And not only that, being part of the entertainment world myself, I have played a lot of time period pieces and I have a lot of them coming up, Revolutionary War and all that. But there's a lot of other roles that are starting to come too. Like, I can't really speak on them yet, but, there's another role where I'm going to be in a more modern day, uh, you know, movie, and it's gonna be in the horror genre, but I'm indigenous in today's culture, Uh, I have ideas of different things that I'm writing myself that I would like to turn it into to where, we're all part of this world. And so one of the things I would like to do and that I'm trying to work on is uh doing somewhat of a like a guild, so that way indigenous actors can be looked after. That way we're not mistreated. Because one thing that happened on the first set I was on was Lawman Bass Reeves, and there was a lot of other indigenous actors that I was working along with on the background. And when production would come around and try to bully us around, tell us that we can't do this, we can't do that, you know, they all said, "Hey, we all stand in solidarity." If they tell us that if they kick one of us off, we all walk. They can't make a Western without us. And so it was kind of cool to see us all to come together from different nations because even on the reservation, which I know that a lot of people don't know this, but on the reservation, there's a lot of separation. There's a lot of separation in families. And mine, uh, Little Dog family, and a lot of the No Runner runner families, they tend to fight a lot. No Runners fight other families, and everybody fights the Little Dogs, and it's a lot of separation, and that separation that was caused, in my opinion, the system that was put forth and the feelings of defeat whenever put on the reservation. And so I like seeing how in different places we're all coming back together to try to unite, because even with me, Choctaw stickball is not from my culture, but I love playing it. I hold the reverence for it that the Choctaws would hold for it too, because I know that it was held as a game, little brother of war. And so, you know, I think that we could do better as being more of one person. That makes us more united as well as to help support each other. And that's why, I really appreciate you coming out to the podcast. It's really awesome. It's a really good experience. It's really great hearing your story, and hearing the stuff that you had to go through as far as the separation and then coming back to your culture and reuniting. And that's what I would like for everybody else to go through, because there's a lot of people that are still suffering from the anger. They get stuck there. And some people think, oh, it's just me, I'm going through this by myself. And you're really not, that is a common feeling, that is normal, but it's what you do with that anger. Are you gonna drink and do drugs and throw your life away? Are you gonna be meaningful? Do something with your life, make a change, be the change that you want to see. And for you, definitely, we can see that you're being the change that you want to see, and that's awesome. That's inspiring.
It's definitely been a long journey, but yeah, it is all about the choices that we make and the environments that we choose for ourselves. Because as children, we can't choose our environments, but as adults, we can do the work to place ourselves in healthier environments that allow us to heal, that allow us to thrive and to flourish and to come out of survival mode. Because I think as a lot of Indigenous people, we're born into survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, you're not your true authentic self. You don't even know who you are. And I'm just saying that from experience. I've been in survival mode most of my life up into the last couple of years. So healing is really important. Getting into ceremony, if you can get back into ceremony and get into that way, that helped me a lot. but also learning how to follow my heart and to trust my instincts and to trust myself and to it was a long, long journey to get to that point that I actually could look in the mirror and say that. And when you love yourself, you are not going to let certain things happen to you, and you are not going to throw your life away when bad things happen, as they always will.
Hmm.
So it's been an honor to be here with you, and thank you for giving me this opportunity tonight to share and to get to know you more too. It's pretty good to see the things you're doing.
I appreciate it. That's why I did this platform. Was one to I like the way that it's moving. Because everybody sees actors, entertainers. They see that. Whenever we book something that they're like, oh wow, they're living a great life. They must have such a great life. But in reality, we have struggles too. Yes, we're having fun. It is work and it's fun work. However, we are people as well too, and I like for people to get to know the artist, and see, that even though you've had a rough past, you had a rough upbringing. However, for you, and same goes for me, for my history too, is that's not a point that we like to point the finger at other people and say it's your fault I'm not succeeding. But instead, what we did was, and I'm sure you do the same too, is take that pain, turn it, and finally become a better person out of it because, you know, for future generations, I don't want my kids to go through the stuff that I went through. I want them to be better than how I am, or how I was, to not have to start from rock bottom or start from zero, but continue a journey that I already began for them, and that they grow up without the pain and the anger that I did, and that they're, again, better people than I am, And so I think that that's a road that we should all be focused on, as far as, especially, as people in general. However, especially from the reservations, create a new generation to where they're not going through the pain that our people felt, that we're in charge of healing the next generation. Sorry, I said
Yes.
a lot, but
Well, I do
um,
know. Yeah, it is. It's up to us. And that requires a lot of sacrifice in this day and age that we're in. And healthy, unhealthy environments, we have to make the choices to get out of there. And then a lot of times we have backlash from our community, right? We have judgments and things like that. But, like following our hearts and following our passions, that's our birthright, right? We're not here to suffer. We're not here. And yes, we do have to make sacrifices, but we're not here to suffer. And when we follow our hearts and our passions, when it comes to the entertainment world, when creating art, so many indigenous people around the world are creative geniuses, right? But you have to follow your heart to find out what's for you to express. And when we follow our hearts and we go down the path that's meant for us, that also we're backed in the spirit world with that, then we create change for our children to have a better life. And that is intergenerational abundance, right?
Mhm.
Intergenerational wealth is through creating healing now within our own DNA and our bloodlines, so that our children, like you were saying earlier, don't have to go through the hard struggles and sacrifices that we did to break free from the trauma. And so, like, for example, me writing my book was looking 7 generations ahead to tell the story right now, but to also work through what was holding me back, the blockages, the pain, the trauma in my own bloodline and before me, so that my children to come don't have to work through as much as I did. And yeah, so I like to think of that as intergenerational wealth, passing that on, intergenerational healing.
For sure, and that's the true wealth, is it's not money or any of that people think it is for to be wealth, but it's to be free of the pain, free of everything that's happened in the past. Because I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but are you familiar with the the memory water, the water memory.
Dr. Masaru Emoto?
Yes.
Yes, I
And that
am.
our bodies are 90% water, and there's water in our blood and everything else. So it carries the memories within our DNA, and our DNA itself is, gigabytes and gigabytes, megabytes. Basically, it's a lot of information. And so, like, for one good example is like growing up. I didn't grow up around my biological father. I didn't know him since I was 2. However, whenever I got to actually meet him, I did have a lot of similarities like him. And, he wasn't always the greatest person to be around. He wasn't always the person that he was whenever I finally got to meet him. But, you know, later on in his life when he settled down, and, for me, I was already past a lot of the anger that I had grown up into. It was kind of cool to see that there was a way that we were kind of the same, but in a more healed fashion rather than the angry people we used to be. And I guess whenever I was angry, just hearing stories about him, I was similar to him, and I never really grew up around him. So there was no way for me to learn from him how to be that way. And so it just goes back to memories and, our DNA, the water that we get, whenever we're born in placenta, which is also contains water. So, it's DNA is coming through. The waters from our ancestor runs through us as well. So,
Yes, that's so we heal our internal water, right? We heal. So, yeah. And that experiment I just want to share a little bit more about that, the water. So there was experiments done by Dr. Masaru Emoto. He was a Japanese scientist. He's no longer with us, but he left his results from those experiments that showed you could take droplets of water and expose them to different frequencies. For example, he exposed them to different musics, different heavy metal or classical music, so different musical vibrations like that. And then he would also expose the water to different words that hold vibrations. For example, hate. Another one was exposed to love. And so these crystals that would form under the exposing to these different frequencies, for example, hate, gave the result of a very distorted, fragmented, unhealthy uh, development of the water. But
mhm,
when the water was exposed to the frequency of love through just the word love, it would form into a beautiful, perfect crystal. And so imagine that when your whole body is exposed and all your water droplets and molecules are exposed to these different frequencies, the effects that these frequencies have on you. And so if you're in an environment that's sick, naturally you're going to be sick because everything's connected, right? But if you take yourself out of that environment, and you put yourself in an environment full of love, even if that means you have to separate yourself and be alone, but you're practicing self-love and you're in a safe place. I mean, and I've had to do this myself many times. Then your body is going to heal itself because your water is being exposed to healthy, positive frequencies that change the way your water acts. So that's just a scientific aspect of that. Of course, we say, and what were we out at Standing Rock for during the movement in 2016, 2017? Mni Wachoni is what we would say.
mhm,
And that's water is life. We were out there to protect the water, the pure source of water that was under threat. And so, when the water that we see in our environment is reflected on the water in within us too. So, you can raise the frequency of water in your body through music. You can also do that externally through actual bodies of water. You can go and sing to the water. And that's why our ancestors have done this for generations. That's why we continue to do that. Our singing helps to heal the earth, helps to heal the water externally and internally.
mhm. That is very true. And so, Uh, you know, I know that we've gone on for quite some bit of time, and it's actually gone to a full. Usually, when I have two guests, it goes about 2 hours. So it's actually been pretty cool. It's been a great conversation. I really
It
enjoyed having you
has.
on the show. And so I do want to thank you. I want to go ahead and let you have your evening with your son as well. I know that's probably getting close to bedtime because there's school tomorrow. Same with my kiddos as well. But thank you very much for joining us today. And again, it's always amazing to have somebody else who's on that's very knowledgeable about this, about vibrations and the energy and being in the entertainment industry as well and being able to protect yourself. It's always really refreshing to have somebody else with that. So thank you very much. Thank you for everything that you've done, as well as all the speaking up and that being the activist and all the hardships that you've had to go through for speaking up as well. Thank you very much. So
Thank you. Thank
uh,
you for acknowledging that, and thank you for having me on. It's been awesome, and this was a really great podcast episode. So,
I appreciate it. So last thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and give everybody your name real quick, so that way where they can find you on social media. I know that you're on Instagram, Facebook. You want to give them all your. Well, I know that we probably share the links later, but it's under your name that everybody can see. However, there are some channels that we're on, like Amazon. They only play audio, and so if you wouldn't mind
okay.
spelling your name real quick.
Okay, it's Stephanie Big Eagle, Stephanie. Last name is Big, Big space Eag. So I am on Facebook as, why don't you just search www.facebook.com/Steph Big Eagle? That would take you directly to my page, which is verified. My Instagram is at Steph Big Eagle, StepBigeagle. It's also verified. My TikTok is at Stephanie Big Eagle, also verified. And I want to make sure that's really important that you make sure that you're following only my verified accounts, because there are hundreds of copycats that try to spam people, scam them, spam them. And I do not give readings. And this is always what they go after people for. They try to offer a horoscope or tarot readings or psychic readings. And I just do not do that. So you guys be careful. Don't get scammed. I also have a red note. So I have a link tree that has everything attached, or you can go to my website. My website is www.steph, Big Eagle, BIGEAGLE.com, or my link tree, linktr.ee/Steph Big Eagle, StepBigeagle. My link tree has all of my verified social medias attached to it, so you won't have to wonder if it's me or not.
Perfect. Really appreciate you. On behalf of all of us here at Today's Entertainers with Little Dog and Bell Ringer Film Productions, you know, we thank you very much. I know Will's going to want to say something as well too. And so it's been a very amazing show, and so I really enjoyed this episode, and I really enjoyed interviewing you. Will?
Yes, Stephanie, I am very happy that you came on to this podcast today. It's very inspiring. There's a lot of things that you talked about that touch me wholeheartedly and that I can relate to. So I appreciate all the insight. I'm not indigenous, but I do have some background that allows me to relate to some of the issues and as especially the thoughts about sometimes not feeling like we want to be here. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I don't usually come on as, but this has been a very good show and a very good conversation, and I appreciate you.
Thank you, Will. It's nice to meet you, and thank you for being in the background too. For all of the little issues we had.
I'm always trying to be here, and that is true for everything. I want to be a part of success for people, and I'm not concerned about race or sex or anything. I want people to succeed, and so I appreciate that. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make sure that people succeed.
Well, it
And
looks
that's
like it's happening.
Yeah.
let's
And
let's
so
make that happen.
we're gonna play some last credits for our sponsors. If you don't mind staying on, after that we're gonna end the live stream, but we just need to make sure that everything uploads, okay?
Okay,
And so we're probably just gonna remove us both from the stage, and then he's gonna play those, and then we'll talk a little bit afterwards, okay?
sounds good.
All right.
This episode is brought to you by Honeybee Funds. Honeybee is a nonprofit organization set up to help house homeless people that fall through all the cracks of other help. Homelessness in America has skyrocketed since 2020, and it's senseless in the wealthiest country in America. Outside of natural disasters, Honeybee believes there is no reason for homelessness in America. Some people will fall through the cracks because they have no children, no elderly living in their household. Some homeless people are not recovering from drug addiction or recently released from jail, so they are not viewed as priority for housing. Honeybee Funds is set up to help homeless find a home, even if they have large dog that they count as part of their family. Email charliepooch131@gmail.com if you wish to contribute to Honeybee Funds. Now we will return back to our
Thank you all. Love you guys. Good night. Okay. Oh, are we gonna end the stream, Will?
Man, your show's gonna be awesome, bro. Your show's gonna be awesome.
Oh, I guess we're just playing videos. Good night, everybody. Well, we can go ahead and end the stream.